Okay, so for your reading today, we are carrying on with Fantastic Mr. Fox. Here are some pictures that Quentin Blake has illustrated. Obviously in your book and in the printout you have just got black and white pictures. These are coloured pictures. Have a little look at them and have a think. Who is your favourite character that you've been introduced to so far in this book? Because we will meet some more later in the story. Oh, got no reminder today, but remember, pause your video and read it yourself first. Chapter 12, Badger. Mr. Fox and the 3 remaining small foxes dug fast and straight. They were all too excited now to feel hungry or tired. They knew they were going to have a whacking great feast before long, and the fact that it was none other than Boggis's chickens they were going to eat made them churgle with laughter every time they thought of it. It was lovely to realise that while the fat farmer was sitting up there on the hill waiting for them to starve, he was also giving them their dinner without knowing it. "Keep digging," said Mr. Fox. "It's not much further." All of a sudden a deep voice above their heads said, "Who goes there?" The foxes jumped. They looked up quickly and they saw, peeking through a small hole in the roof of the tunnel, a long, black, pointed, furry face. "Badger!" cried Mr. Fox. "Foxy!" cried Badger. "My goodness me, I'm glad I've found someone at last. I've been digging around in circles for 3 days and nights, and I haven't the foggiest idea where I am." Badger made the hole in the ceiling bigger and dropped down beside the foxes. A small badger, his son, dropped down after him. "Haven't you heard what is happening up on the hill?" Badger said excitedly. "It's chaos. Half the wood has disappeared, and there are men with guns all over the countryside. None of us can get out, even at night. We're all starving to death." "Who is we?" asked Mr. Fox. "All us diggers. That's me and Mole and Rabbit and all of our wives and children. Even Weasel, who can usually sneak out of the tightest spots, is right now hiding down my hole with Mrs. Weasel and 6 kids. What on earth are we going to do, Foxy? I think we're finished." Mr. Fox looked at his 3 children and he smiled. The children smiled back at him, sharing his secret. "My dear old Badger," he said, "this mess you're in is all my fault." "I know it's your fault," said Badger furiously, "and the farmers are not going to give up till they've got you. Unfortunately, that means us as well. It means everybody on the hill." Badger sat down and put a paw around his small son. "We're done for," he said softly. "My poor wife up there is so weak she can't dig another yard." "Nor can mine," said Mr. Fox. "And yet at this very minute she is preparing for me and my children the most delicious feast of plump, juicy chickens." "Stop!" cried Badger. "Don't tease me. I can't stand it." "It's true," cried the small foxes. "Dad's not teasing. We've got chickens galore." "And because everything is entirely my fault," said Mr. Fox, "I invite you to share the feast. I invite everyone to share it. You and Mole and Rabbit and Weasel and all your wives and children. There'll be plenty to go round, I can assure you." "You mean it?" cried Badger. "You really mean it?" Mr. Fox pushed his face close to Badger's and whispered darkly, "Do you know where we've just been?" "Where?" "Right inside Boggis's chicken house #1. "No!" "Yes, but that is nothing to where we are going now. You have come just at the right moment, my dear Badger. You can help us dig, and in the meanwhile, your small son can run back to Mrs. Badger and all the others and spread the good news." Mr. Fox turned to the small badger and said, "Tell them they are invited to a fox's feast. Then bring them all down here and follow this tunnel back until you find my home." "Yes, Mr. Fox," said the small badger. "Yes, sir, right away, sir. Oh, thank you, sir." And he scrambled quickly back through the hole in the roof of the tunnel and disappeared. Chapter 13, Bunce's Giant Storehouse. "My dear Foxy," cried Badger, "what in the world has happened to your tail?" "Don't talk about it, please," said Mr. Fox. "It's a painful subject." They were digging the new tunnel. They dug on in silence. Badger was grate digger, and the tunnel went forward at a terrific pace now he was lending a paw. Soon they were crouching underneath yet another wooden floor. Mr. Fox grinned slyly, showing sharp white teeth. "If I am not mistaken, my dear Badger," he said, "we are now underneath the farm, which belongs to that nasty little pot-bellied dwarf Bunce. We are, in fact, directly underneath the most interesting part of that farm." "Ducks and geese!" cried the small foxes, licking their lips. "Juicy, tender ducks and big fat geese!" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "But how in the world can you know where you are?" asked Badger. Mr. Fox grinned again, showing even more white teeth. "Look," he said, "I know my way around these farms blindfold. For me, it's just as easy below ground as it is above it." He reached high and pushed up one wooden floorboard, then another. He poked his head through the gap. "Yes!" he shouted, jumping up into the room above. "I've done it again! I've hit it smack on the nose, right in the bull's-eye. Come!" Look! Quickly, Badger and the three small foxes scrambled up after him. They stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. They were so overwhelmed they couldn't speak. For what they now saw was a kind of fox's dream, a badger's dream, a paradise for hungry animals. "This, my dear old Badger," proclaimed Mr. Fox, "is Bunce's mighty storehouse. All his finest stuff is stored in here before he sends it off to market." Against all the four walls of the great room, stacked in cupboards and piled up upon shelves, reaching from floor to ceiling, were thousands and thousands of the finest and fattest ducks and geese, plucked and ready for roasting. And up above, dangling from the rafters, there must have been at least 100 smoked hams and 50 sides of bacon. "Just feast your eyes on that," cried Mr. Fox, dancing up and down. "What do you think of it, hey? Pretty good grub." Suddenly, as though springs had been released in their legs, the three hungry small foxes went and the ravenously hungry Badger sprang forward to grab the luscious food. "Stop!" ordered Mr. Fox. "This is my party, so I shall do the choosing." The others fell back, licking their chops. Mr. Fox began prowling around the storehouse, examining the glorious display with an expert eye. A thread of saliva slid down one side of his jaw and hung suspended in mid-air, then snapped. "We mustn't overdo it," he said. "Mustn't give the game away. Mustn't let them know what we've been up to. We must be neat and tidy and take just a few of the choicest morsels. So, to start with, we shall have 4 plump young ducks." He took them from the shelf. "Oh, how lovely and fat they are. No wonder Bunce gets a special price for them at the market." "All right, Badger, lend me a hand to get them down. You children can help as well. There we go. Goodness me, look how your mouths are watering. And now, I think we had better have a few geese. 3 will be quite enough. We'll take the biggest. Oh my, you'll never see finer geese than these in a king's kitchen. Gently does it, that's the way. And what about a couple of nice smoked hams? I adore smoked ham, don't you, Badger? Fetch me that step-ladder, will you, please?" Mr. Fox climbed up the ladder and handed down 3 magnificent hams. "And do you like bacon, Badger?" "I'm mad about bacon," cried Badger, dancing with excitement. "Let's have a side of bacon, that big one up there." "And some carrots, Dad," said the smallest of the 3 small foxes. "We must take some of those carrots." "Don't be a twerp," said Mr. Fox. "You know we never eat things like that." "It's not for us, Dad, it's for the rabbits. They only eat vegetables." "My goodness me, you're right," cried Mr. Fox. "What a thoughtful little fellow you are. Take 10 bunches of carrots." Soon all this lovely loot was lying in a neat heap upon the floor. The small foxes crouched close, their noses twitching, their eyes shining like stars. "And now," said Mr. Fox, "we shall have to borrow from our friend Bunce 2 of those useful pushcarts over in the corner." He and Badger fetched the pushcarts, and The ducks and geese and hams and bacon were loaded into them. Quickly the pushcarts were lowered through the hole in the floor. The animals slid down after them. Back in the tunnel, Mr. Fox again pulled the floorboards very carefully into place so that no one could see they had been moved. "My darlings," he said, pointing to 2 of the small foxes, "take a cart each and run back as fast as you can to your mother. Give her my love and tell her we are having guests for dinner. The badgers, the moles, the rabbits and the weasels. Tell her it must be a truly great feast, and tell her the rest of us will be home as soon as we've done one more little job." "Yes, Dad, right away, Dad," they answered, and they grabbed a trolley each and went rushing off down the tunnel. Chapter 14. Badger has his doubts. "Just one more visit," cried Mr. Fox. "And I'll bet I know where that'll be," said the only small fox left now. He was the smallest fox of them all. "Where?" asked Badger. "Well," said the smallest fox, "we've been to Boggis and we've been to Bunce, but we haven't been to Bean." "It must be Bean." "You're right," said Mr. Fox, "but what you don't know is which part of Bean's place we are about to visit." "Which?" they both said together. "Aha!" said Mr. Fox, "just you wait and see." They were digging as they talked. The tunnel was going forward fast. Suddenly Badger said, "Doesn't this worry you just a tiny bit, Foxy?" "Worry me?" said Mr. Fox. "What?" "All this stealing." Mr. Fox stopped digging and stared at Badger as though he had gone completely dotty. "My dear old furry frump," he said, "do you know anyone in the whole world who wouldn't swipe a few chickens if his children were starving to death?" There was a short silence while Badger thought deeply about this. "You are far too respectable," said Mr. Fox. "There's nothing wrong with being respectable," Badger said. "Look," said Mr. Fox, "Boggis and Bunce and Bean are out to kill us. You realise that, I hope." "I do, Foxy, I do indeed," said the gentle Badger. "But we're not going to stoop to their level. We don't want to kill them." "I should hope not." "Indeed," said Badger. "We wouldn't dream of it," said Mr. Fox. "We shall simply take a little food here and there to keep us and our families alive, right?" "I suppose we'll have to," said Badger. "If they want to be horrible, let them," said Mr. Fox. "We down here are decent, peace-loving people." Badger laid his head on one side and smiled at Mr. Fox. "Foxy," he said, "I love you." "Thank you," said Mr. Fox. "And now let's get on with the digging." 5 minutes later, Badger's front paws hit something flat and hard. "What on earth is this?" he said. "It looks like a solid stone wall." He and Mr. Fox scraped away the soil. It was a wall, but it was built of bricks, not stones. The wall was right in front of them, blocking their way. "Now, who in the world will build a wall under the ground?" asked Badger. "Very simple," said Mr. Fox. "It's the wall of an underground room, and if I am not mistaken, it is exactly what I am looking for." Okay, 5 quick-fire questions. Why are there only 3 small foxes remaining on page 45? Which other animals are also stuck in the hill and cannot get out? Why is the badger a good animal to have on their side? What does the phrase "grinned slyly" mean on page 50? And can you think of another word for pace? Those are your sentence stems. Make sure you're answering in full questions. Pause the video and have a go at answering those. Use your text to help you guys. Okay, good job. So there are only 3 small foxes remaining because one has left to take some food back to his mum. The other animals that are stuck in the hill are badgers, moles, weasels and rabbits. A badger is a good animal to have on their side as they are good and speedy at digging tunnels. Grin slyly means fox smiles sneakily, or you might say cunningly. Okay, another word for pace could be speed. Okay, so your 3 questions that need a bit more brain power. Why do you think that the animal couldn't speak on page 52? Why do you think that the animals, couldn't speak on page 52? What vocabulary has been used to paint this picture? Okay, you've got your sentence stems there. Question 7. How do you think Badger is feeling on page 58 and page 59? What clues does Roald Dahl give us about this? And read chapter 14 again. Do you think Fox is a good character or a bad character? Why do you think this? Give reasons to support your answer. Okay. Pause the video. Have a go at answering those. Okay, question 6. Again, with these guys, there's no hard and fast answer. It's your opinion, but use the text to help you. So why do you think that the animals couldn't speak on page 52? So we're on page 52 here. So you should have started your answer. I think the animals couldn't speak because. Okay, we're looking here. Let me just get my pen. We've got they stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. They were so overwhelmed they couldn't speak. Okay, so it does actually tell you there. They were so overwhelmed they couldn't speak. So you could put that into your answer. I think the animals couldn't speak because they were so overwhelmed. Okay, why? I'm going to ask you that question though. Why were they overwhelmed? Okay. What tells us they were overwhelmed? They stopped and they stared. They stood and they gaped. Okay. They couldn't speak because what they saw was a fox's dream, a badger's dream. Okay. What they saw in front of them was things that they might have seen in their dreams. They didn't think for a minute that anything like that could be a reality. Whereas they've actually found out that it is a reality, and that is why that they are so overwhelmed that they can't speak. Okay, so all of this underlined vocabulary, all of these phrases help you to answer that question. Okay. Question 7. How do you think Badger is feeling on page 58 and page 59? What clue does Roald Dahl give us about this? Okay, so the title in itself, guys, of chapter 14, Badger has doubts. That gives us a little clue, doesn't it, about how he might be feeling. He might be feeling maybe a little bit. What are the words that we could use? Doubtful. We could use doubtful. We could use nervous. Apprehensive. That's a good word. Apprehensive maybe means he feels a little bit, like I say, slightly nervous about something. Because deep down, we know here, he's saying, doesn't this worry you just a tiny bit? That gives us the impression that Badger is worried. Okay. And why is he worried? Because he's seeing it as stealing. Okay. So you might write in your answer something along the lines of, I think Badger is feeling worried or apprehensive. I get this impression because he thinks that what they are doing is stealing. Okay. Badger, though, he's saying there's nothing wrong with being respectable. Okay. And Mr. Fox puts his mind at rest and says they're not stooping to the levels of the farmers. They're not trying to kill them. They're just trying to feed their families. Okay. Which makes Badger, I think, feel a little bit better. It's definitely provided Badger with a little bit of food for thought. Okay, and we can tell that up here. There was a short silence while Badger thought about this. Okay. Right. Chapter 14. Read it again. Do you think Fox is a good character or a bad character? Why do you think this? Give reasons to support your answer. Okay, now this, guys, is one that's completely up to you. Okay, you might think that Fox is a good character and he is trying to look after his family and he's trying to act the hero and be the fantastic Mr. Fox that he is, coming up with all these plans to make sure that his family are okay. Okay, but you might also read it especially after reading chapter 14, you might see it from Badger's point of view, and you might say that you think Fox is slightly, he's not the best character. He's a little bit sneaky. and a little bit naughty really for stealing the chickens and the hens and the geese and the turkeys off of the farmers. Okay, so it's completely up to you. But when you've answered this question, it'd be interesting to see how many of you think that Fox is a good character, or how many of you think that Fox is a bad character or a bit of a naughty character. If you could take a picture and email of your answer and email them over to your teachers, that would be absolutely fab. Okay, there's another little bit of text there that might help you with your answer. Okay, well done guys today. That was tricky.
Good morning, Year 3. Okay, so I hope you all had a great weekend. We are going to just mark over your work from last week on the Friday. You'll do it and you'll secure it, and then we'll move on to today's learning. Okie dokie. So, where is? Oh, it's hiding. That's why. Okay, sorry, talking to myself. Right, okay, my pen. I'm going to put my purple pen on. Let me check its side. Oh, lovely. Right, so all I wanted you to do in your book was write the two equivalent fractions for me, and then have a go at writing it in words. All right. If you wanted to have a go at drawing it and colouring in the pictorial representation in your book yourself, that's absolutely fine. If you want to, I probably will do it on here just to help show you what it looks like. So number one, 1/3 is equal to how many ninths? I'm just going to quickly get rid of all my scribbles I've done so it's a bit clearer to see. So 1/3 equal to how many ninths? Now there's two ways you could have done it. If you drew the pictures, you would have looked at how 1 out of 3 equal parts is that. So if I was to do the same thing on here, that would give us 3 ninths. Okay, so you could have then written down that 1/3 is equivalent to 3 ninths. Okay, the other way you could have done that was having a look at what have you done to your denominator to get that, and you'll see that you've multiplied it by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so you do the same to your numerator, and 1 times 3 equals 3. Okay, so number 2, how many fourths is equal, how many quarters is equal to how many twelfths? And then when you look on the words over here, Paddy, get down. Sorry guys, Paddy's trying to give me lots of cuddles right now. On the words next to it, it says 3/12 is equal to how many quarters? So we know we've got 3/12 there. Okay, again, you could have drawn these circles and had a go at colouring them in yourself. 3/12, what does that look like in quarters? The other thing, though, I'd have liked you to have had a go at is what would you have done to that 12 to get 4? Now, remember, if it's getting smaller, then we are dividing. 12 divided by what is 4? The answer is 3, because 4 times 3 is 12. So same with the 3 then. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so you should have that 1/4 is equal to 3/12. And then for the last one, 4/12 is equivalent to what? So you'd have seen here there's 12ths. Okay, you just had to look at that picture there. How many equal parts are there altogether? There are 3. It's in thirds. So you're looking at what is 4/12 equivalent to in thirds. So we can have a look at how we get our 12 to our 3. Okay, it's getting smaller, so we are dividing, and we know that number fact between 12 and 3, it must be 4, because 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so we divide it by 4. We do the same with our numerator. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So that would be 4/12 is equivalent to 1/3. Okay, well done if you got that, guys. If you haven't, okay, if you've not quite got that, that's fine. Have a little practice again, or go back. Can you work out what it is that you've gone wrong? Can you work out what it is that you've not quite understood? Okay, so you'll secure it then. I had two here for you to have a go at. So the first one is, which is the odd one out? Explain why. So I talked to you about just finding what fractions being represented in each picture. Okay, so the first one here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Okay, that's 5. That represents 5 tenths. Okay, here we've got 1 half. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 6 twelfths there. And then over here we've got 3 fifths. Okay, so hopefully you've noticed that 5 tenths, 1 half, and 6 twelfths are all equivalent. Okay, they are all equivalent because they are all equal to half. 5 is half of 10. 1 is half of 2. We recognise that as 1 half anyway. And 6 is half of 12. 3 fifths is not equivalent to 1 half. So 3 fifths. Okay, that one would have been the odd one out. And if you've said that that one's the odd one out, then you get a tick for that. Okay, if you've explained if your explanation says because the other representations or the other pictures or the other ones are equivalent to 1 half, then you get another tick for that. Okay, explaining why that one's the odd one out. Okay, the next one says Teddy makes his fraction. Okay, which we can see there is 1/3, 1 out of 3 equal parts, is shaded. Mo says he can make an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 9. Dora disagrees. She says it can't have a denominator of 9 because the denominator would need to be double 3. Who is correct? Who is incorrect? Okay, so there's a few different ways we could have answered this. We could have tried to go with what Mo's saying. So he says, so Teddy's got 1/3. Mo is saying that you can make an equivalent fraction with a denominator 9. Okay, can we do that? Well, what do we do to 3 to get 9? We have to multiply 3 by 3 to get 9. So we just do that to our numerator as well. 1 times 3 is 3. So Mo is correct. You definitely can do that. Now Dora disagrees. She says you can't have a denominator of 9 because the denominator would need to be double 3. So she's saying the denominator needs to be double 3. Double 3 is 6. So if you times the denominator by 2, well, I'll do it in another colour, like the other one to help. Then you do the same to your numerator. Okay, so she's not wrong there. That can be an equivalent fraction, but that's not the only one. So Dora is incorrect partially because she's saying it has to be double. It doesn't have to be. Mo is still correct. Okay, he can make an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 9. So well done if you said that if you've said that Mo is correct and you've proved it. You get another tick if you have proved it, like I've done here. So you get a tick if you've done that, a tick if you've said that Mo is correct. Dora is kind of half correct because you can have an equivalent fraction by doubling your denominator. But that's not the only one. That's not the only way to do it. She's wrong by saying Mo is wrong, okay, or by disagreeing with Mo. So there's a few different things that we could have done there. Well done, guys, if you understood that and you could talk about that and have a go at explaining that confidently. Okay, today's learning then. So you're going to pause me in a second just to write down your date and LO. We're going to have a look at comparing fractions today. So pause me whilst you write that down. Okay, guys, well done. So firstly, let's have a quick look at comparing unit fractions. You guys completely show me that you definitely get what a unit fraction is. It's when our numerator is just one unit. So first we're going to have a look at comparing, and when we're comparing we use these symbols. Okay, something's greater than, or something is less than, or something is equal to or equivalent to. All right, now just here I've got my fraction wall again. All right, my first one here, the red one, that shows a fraction. Each one has a fraction coloured in. All right, now underneath I've got 3 comparisons here. Now we can use our symbols greater than, less than, or equal to, within those. Now, when we had to go at this during our Head Start tests, you know, just before you guys did your learning at home, we did all those really long tests, and you guys, of course, were amazing. But this was something that you all struggled with. Now, you guys all thought that if the denominator was bigger, that meant it was a bigger fraction. So, for example, 1/10 and 1/4. A lot of you were saying that 1/10 is bigger, is greater than 1/4 because 10 is greater than 4. Now, have a look at my fraction wall. Very quickly, the first fraction, the red one, is showing, well, there's 3 equal parts altogether. So that's our denominator, 3 equal parts, and one of them is coloured in. Okay. The next one has 4 equal parts, and one of them is coloured in. The next one has 5 equal parts, one of them is coloured in. The next one has 6 equal parts, one of them is coloured in, so that's 1/6. The last one is 10 equal parts with one of them coloured in. Now, what do you notice about, so we're looking here for 1/10, we're looking at this one compared to 1/4, which is here, 1 out of the 4. Now have a look at those. Which of those pieces is greater? Hopefully you've all said 1/4 is obviously bigger. Okay, now 1/4 is greater than 1/10 because that piece has been, that whole amount has been split into less pieces, which means each equal part is greater than something being split into 10 equal parts. Okay. The next one is 1/3 and 1/6. Which one is going to be greater? 1/3 or 1/6? So have a little look. Okay, so sorry guys, that's Paddy barking because you can hear noises. Hopefully you can see that the top one, the red one, that shows 1/3 and the brown one shows 1/6. You can see straight away that 1/3 is greater than 1/6. Okay, because it's been cut, it's been split into less equal pieces, so that means the less the piece, the smaller the amount it's been split into, the greater each part. So 1/3 is greater than 1/6. And the last one is 1/5 and 1/4. Now these are very, very close. If you look at, 5 is bigger than 4. So have a little look on the fraction wall. So your quarter is the purple one and your 1/5 is the yellow one. Which one is greater? Brilliant. 1/4. Okay, so a rule to help us remember this: when the numerators are the same, so when it's a unit fraction, here all of our numerators are 1, then the denominator, the fraction, okay? The smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction. Okay, so the smaller the denominator, I'm actually going to put the greater the fraction. Oh gosh, it's really difficult to write on here. Okay, so let's just double check that. When you have a look at those fractions, so let's just come back to this one again. 1/10 and 1/4. We're saying that if the numerators are the same, so yep, we've both got unit fractions there, so both numerators are 1. The smaller the denominator, the greater the fraction. So which denominator is smaller? 4 is smaller, which means that one is bigger. Okay. It seems confusing, but when you look at your fraction wall and you remember it like that, okay, that will help you. And we'll keep coming back to this. So, for example, if I've got 3 pizzas here, I'm going to have a go at chopping them into different amounts of fractions. They are all the same amount, okay? The whole amount is the same for each of these pizzas. All right, now this one I'm going to split in half. Okay, this one over here I'm going to split into quarters. Okay, I've split that now into 4 equal parts, and this one I'm going to see if I can do this now. Split it into 5. Oh my goodness me, Miss Cunnington. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lovely. Into 10 pieces. Okay, now, which fraction would you rather have? Now, if I had 3 pizzas, okay, and I've split this one into halves, okay, So you could have 1/2 of a pizza. You could have 1/4 of a pizza. Or you could have 1/10 of a pizza. Now, if you're like me and absolutely love pizza, you would definitely want the bigger piece. Which pizza would you eat from? Which fraction would you rather have? Which one's greater than all the others? Hopefully you're all saying, oh yeah, it's the half. I'd much rather have 1/2 of a pizza than 1/4 or 1/10. Okay. However, 2 is much smaller than 4 and 10. All right. So it comes back to the, if our numerators are the same, then the smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction. Okay. Because you're sharing it with less people. Okay, so that pizza you could share with just one other person, but all the others you'd have to share it with lots more people. Okay, so it'd be much better to have 1/2 than 1/10. So the smaller the denominator, the greater the fraction. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at some non-unit fractions. So I've got here 2/5 and 4/5. So now have a look. They're not unit fractions. They've got the same denominator. Okay, your denominator is the same. They're both fifths, but now we are comparing the numerators. So have a quick think. Which one's going to be greater, 2/5 or 4/5? Now let's check. So I've got my 2 bars up here. So I'll do 2/5 on here so we can compare them to check. Okay, so that's 2/5, 2 out of my 5 equal parts. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, which one is greater? Hopefully you're all screaming 4/5 is obviously greater than 2/5. Okay, so now let's come down here for me. When the denominators are the same, so our denominators now, they are the same, they are both fifths, then the greater, oh my goodness me, I can't write, the greater the numerator. So now we look at the numerators. Whichever one's greater is the greater the fraction. So the greater the numerator, the greater the fraction. Okay. So it's so difficult not to get mixed up between those two rules. Okay. So if your numerators are the same, if they're unit fractions, then the smaller the denominator is the bigger the part. Okay. So the greater the fraction. However, if it's a non-unit fraction, okay, and your denominators are the same, then it's just the greater the numerator. That one's really nice and easy, I find. You guys got that, you knew that. It was just when if it was unit fractions, you weren't sure. Okay, you guys are fine with this. So let's just have one more practice here. So see if you can do it. You don't have to do it in your book. Just have a look at it. Can you tell me which one's greater, 3/4 or 1/4? Okay, so hopefully you have said 3/4 is greater than 1/4. Our denominators are the same, so that means we've just got to compare our numerators. Okay, 3 is greater than 1, so 3 parts out of my 4 parts is greater than 1 part out of my 4 equal parts. All right, I think those ones are really, really easy. If you're not sure, do just pause it and have a look back at the other one. So this is your do it then. This is what I want you to have a go at in your book today. You've just got 6 comparisons. Okay, that's all you've got to do, comparing 6 different fractions. Now I have tried to do it so that at first you're doing unit fractions and then non-unit fractions, so please do be careful, check your numerators. If you get stuck and you can't remember which one's which, draw it out or just rewind, just drag the video back where we did the examples. Okay, if I do a line like this, it might help you. Oh, that's rubbish. It's white. You can't see it. Oh, silly me. I'll do it in red for you. Okay. Oh my goodness. Where is it? Colour. There we go. Okay. Did a couple of lines there for you. Just so you can see, I have been kind. I have split them up for you. So your first 3 are unit fractions, and then your next 3 are non-unit fractions. Those are the ones I think you will well, it's fair. I think you're going to fly through all of this thing. Once you've understood, if you think about sharing that chocolate bar or that pizza with those different people, you know, which one would you have the bigger part of? All right, so if you get stuck, just head back in the video. So pause it now and have a go at those for me in your book. Okay, well done, guys. Now, here is a second do it challenge if you fancy it. These ones always trick us. They are really, really sneaky. So here it says 1/2 is greater than 1 something, and that is greater than 1/10. Now, what do we notice about our numerators? They are all the same. They are all unit fractions. So you've just got to work out what denominator could go in there. Okay, there is more than one possibility. If you want to tell me all those possibilities, that would be amazing. You will get a mark for each of those. So have a go. This is your do it challenge. If you flew through your other do it, then have a go at this. You've then got to secure it coming up. Okay, right, so onto your secure it then, so you can do this in your book as well, please. So I've given you 2 here. I'm making you work hard today. But do remember though, guys, if you get stuck, don't worry, just carry on. Just give it a good go and leave it there if you need to. Okay, so you secure it here. Dora says, I know that 1/3 is larger than 1/2 because 3 is larger than 2. Oh, that's like you guys when we did our fractions tests. Okay, do you agree with Dora? Explain how you know. So if you don't agree, you need to tell me why and prove it to me. Okay, you guys will smash that. The next one. Here are 3 fractions. Now, this is a little bit tricky, so please don't stress if you don't know it. Have a little go though. See what you can do to work it out. We're going to go through the answer tomorrow anyway, so please don't get up. Don't worry if you're really flummoxed by it. I've put it there to flummox you, so it's fine. Which fraction is the largest? Now we've got 3/8, 3/5, and then 1/8. So tricky stuff. Which fraction is the smallest? How do you know? Which fraction is the largest? How do you know? So what I would say here is think about the facts that you know, just compare 2 at a time and see what that then can tell you about the other one, sorry. All right. So just have a little think, which one's the greatest, which one's the largest and which one's the smallest, and how do you know? It's going to be difficult to explain it, but just have a little go. Okay. If you can explain it by perhaps doing comparing in pairs, comparing 2 fractions together, and that can help explain it. Okay, right, good luck guys, have a go. Remember, if you're not sure or you think, oh, I could do with just another example of that, then just go back. Okay, just rewind the video, not a problem, and we will go through those answers first thing tomorrow morning. Great stuff guys, keep up the excellent work, you superstars. Goodbye.
Good morning everybody, we're on to your writing for today. So we're going to have a go at our speech spotter for Monday. So we're going to be thinking about our introduction, our little bit of a warm-up today, and we're going to be using speech spotter all week. So we're going to be looking at some sentences, and we're going to be trying to spot within those sentences the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives and the adverbs. So just as a little recap before we get started this morning, you'll remember that the verb is an action, okay? So something like running, jumping, reading, or it could be a state of being. So is or was are also verbs as well. Nouns are things or ideas. They're the names of people and places and objects. Adverbs tell us how an action occurred. So they're linked to a verb and they tell us how it was performed. So you might quickly jump or slowly crawl. And then adjectives tell us about the noun, so they describe the noun. So finding that noun and those verbs will help us to find the adverb and the adjective. So get your thinking caps on, ready for this morning's starter activity. So here we have 3 sentences, and in your books I'd like you to copy out the sentence and then label each of the words. So you can label one a noun by putting a n in front of it or an n. You can label an adjective with an a verb with a V, or an adverb with an AD, if that makes it easier, or you can colour them in or you can highlight them whatever way you want to show them. But you're looking for the noun, the adjective, the verb and the adverbs in these sentences. So the first sentence is, the fierce lion ate the buffalo hungrily. The second sentence is, the zookeeper quietly set the wild animals free. And the third sentence today is skeletons protect our important organs. So 1 and 2 are quite easy. Number 3 takes a little bit more thinking today. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, and I'd like you to copy those sentences into your books and label the nouns, the adjectives, the verbs and the adverbs, and come back to me when you've finished. Okay, I hope that you've managed to do that. Let's have a little look at your answers. So, I've labelled mine linked to the colours. So let's go through each sentence separately. So we'll start with number 1. The fierce lion ate the buffalo hungrily. So the nouns in this sentence, the names of the things, are the lion and the buffalo. The verbs in this sentence, what's the lion doing? He's eating, so their verbs got to be ate. I need an adjective to describe the noun. So the lion is fierce, so that's my adjective today, fierce. And I need to describe my verb with an adverb, so that one's hungrily, so he hungrily ate, okay? Number 2, the zookeeper quietly set the wild animals free. So again, if we start with the nouns are zookeeper, the name of the person, and animals, the name of the group of things that he was setting free. So the nouns are zookeeper and animals. What did the zookeeper do? The verb is set. The zookeeper set them free. Okay. How did he do that? He quietly did it. So quietly is our adverb. And how is he describing these animals? If we look before it, we've got wild. So that's our adjective in this sentence. Now, you'll remember I said that the third one was a little bit more tricky. So let's have a look at that one together. So skeletons protect our important organs well. Okay. So the names of the things in this sentence, the nouns are skeletons and organs. Okay. And what are the skeletons doing? That's our verb. So they're going to protect things. So that's our verb. We've got a description here, important organs, not just any old organs, just the important ones. So that's an adjective. And how do they protect it? They protect it well, which I think was probably the trickiest one to spot. So if you managed to find the adverb of well, you did really, really well in that sentence. Okay, now we're going to go on to our actual writing for today. So we have received a little letter, boys and girls. So this is linked to all of our learning that we did last week on our discussion between whether it was right to kill the fox or wrong to kill the fox. And look, the mayor of Brighton, where the foxes live, want to know our opinion too. So the letter says, Dear Redbrook Hayes, I am writing to ask you for advice. I am the mayor of Brighton, the home of Mr. Fox and the farmers, Boggis, Bunce and Bean, and I am fed up with their constant arguing. I feel the need to settle the argument about whether Fox should be shot or not once and for all, and I'm going to pass a new law. But I don't know which one to pass. Should I stop foxes being hunted or allow the farmers to shoot the foxes on their land who are killing their livestock? Can you help me by letting me know which law you think I should pass? Yours sincerely, Mr. P.G. Yates, Mayor of Brighton. So we've received this letter from the Mayor of Brighton asking us what we think. Then we need to let him know what we think about whether he should ban fox hunting or whether he should allow it to happen. So let's have a little look what we're going to do today with that. So just to remind ourselves about why we think that the law should be passed for foxes to stop being hunted, law number 1, and law number 2, allowing farmers to shoot the foxes on their land. Let's just have a little think about what the reasons for hunting those foxes might be. So have a little pause the video, try and write down just one reason. I think foxes should not be hunted because, think back to last week and write down your reason. Okay, if you've got a reason for that one, brilliant. Let's have a look at law number 2 up here. So should we allow farmers to shoot the foxes living on their land who are killing their livestock? So again, what I'd like to do is pause the video and finish that sentence for me. So I think that farmers should be allowed to shoot foxes because can you think of something from Friday's work that you could put in there? Okay, so the ideas that you might have had for law number 1 is that I think foxes should not be hunted because they need food to survive. You might have picked because they're just animals like us, or you might have picked they will die out if we hunt them all. You could have picked another reason as well, which will be absolutely fine, but those are 3 ideas if you're struggling. For law number 2, here are some of the reasons that you could have put. So I think that farmers should be allowed to shoot foxes because they're stealing things that don't belong to them, because they're scaring the chickens, or because they're killing innocent animals. Again, you might have had some other reasons or some other ideas, and those are absolutely fine too. But today, what we're going to do is write a persuasive speech. So we're going to imagine that we're talking to the Mayor of Brighton, and we're going to tell him about what we think. So you're going to have to choose one argument or the other. So last week we were doing a balanced argument. We were thinking about what people might think who want them shot and what people might think that don't want them shot. And this time we're going to do a show what you know, but it's all going to be about what you think. So you get to choose one way or the other. So to help you to think about what you're going to write today, we've got a little planning former here. So first of all, you're going to need to think about who you're talking to and why you're speaking to them, and you might want to make some little notes about it. Then you need to put your arguments in order. So the strongest argument first, then the next strongest argument, and then the final argument. So what order are you going to think about how you're going to persuade the mayor to do what you want them to do? You might want to put in as a special kind of extra part of it, the counter argument. So whilst I understand that other people might think this, but it's not really right, and then you're going to put in a conclusion. So if I have a little go at planning this with you, we can have a little think. So who are we talking to? Well, I'm going to be talking to the mayor. And why am I speaking to them? I've decided that my argument means that I want them to stop hunting the foxes altogether. That's what I want to persuade him to do. Okay? So then if I'm looking at my strongest argument, I think my strongest argument is that it's cruel because they only want to eat and the foxes are starving. So that's going to be my argument for the first one. I'm then going to think about my next strongest argument, and I decided that the foxes lived long before the farmers did. So the foxes have been living on that land a long time, so I'm going to argue that. And then my final argument is here that if all the foxes were hunted, they'd grow out, and there'd be a problem with extinction, and that the farmers then won't like them because they'll have loads and loads of mice, because the foxes also kill mice as well as killing chickens. My counter argument might be that the foxes are killing the chickens, but I might go back to my mice problem when I want to talk about that. And then I'm going to conclude by summing up all of my arguments. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and have a little think about your argument. Who are you talking to? Why are you speaking to them? And make yourself some notes. Now, you could just think these things through in your head, or you could scribble them down on a piece of paper if that's easy for you. But have a pause, have a think. What are you going to write about today? And then come back to me because we're going to have a little bit of a practice together. Okay, that's super. So let's have a look at what we're going to do today. Let's have a look at our challenges for today. Oh, there we go. So we're going to be writing a persuasive speech. Now, it's a show what you know, right? So that you haven't got lots and lots of information. It's just time to show us the skills that you have got, which is brilliant. And there are 2 challenges today. So you could use the speech I have started, which we're going to do in a minute, to continue the argument and persuade the mayor not to kill the foxes. Or you might want to write completely your own speech to persuade them to ban the foxes or allow them to do the foxes. You don't have to use what I'm going to show you now, but you can if you want to. So let's have a little write together. Okay, so here we are over at the writing page. Remembering we're writing to persuade, we're writing a persuasive speech, and I'm going to follow the plan that we created earlier. So I'm going to start by answering this first question. Who are you talking to today? So I might start my speech with, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting me to share my opinion with you, and I'm writing about the fox problem at Boggis Bunce and Beans farm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting me to share my opinion with you about the fox problem at Boggis, Bunce and Beans farm. Why am I speaking to them? Well, I want to persuade them, don't I, that I don't want them to kill the foxes. So how am I going to write there? Let's have a little think. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting me to share my opinion with you about the fox problem at Boggis, Bunce and Beans farm. I am here today to persuade you to pass a law which stops farmers hunting foxes. Okay, and then what I might do is go on to my strongest argument. So if you remember, my strongest argument was that they're just trying to feed themselves and they were starving. So I might start with something like, firstly, the foxes on the farm, oh, I don't need a capital letter, do I, there? Because I'm talking about a group of foxes on the farm are simply, remember that emotive language that you might be trying to put in, trying to survive. It is normal for foxes to hunt small animals like chickens, just like we eat beef and chicken too. Okay, so that might be my first argument. Then I might go on and do secondly, or I might go on and put also, and I'm going to try and link my arguments together. So that's what I'm hoping that you're going to have a little go at for me today. So let's go back to the challenges and see what we've got to do. Okay, so back here at the challenges, remember it's a show what you know, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You just show me all the skills and the qualities that you've got for your writing. You're writing me a persuasive speech. Now you can use the first challenge, which uses my writing to start you off. So my writing's there to help you if you want to use that to get started. Or you can write just by yourself and have a go at persuading the mayor to do what you want them to do. So this is your writing challenge for today. Pause the video here, have a go at your writing, and then come back to us and we'll have a little go through it, and we'll also have a look at the connected curriculum for today. Good luck, guys. Okay, so hopefully you've had fun doing your writing today. One thing that you could do with your writing today is have a little think when you've read it back, how effective is your speech? So remembering that it's a speech, it's a really good idea if you can try it out by reading it to someone at home and ask them, have you convinced them? Have you managed to get them to want to pass the law that you wanted to? And can they offer you any suggestions on how you can make it even more persuasive? If you're up for another little challenge today and you want something else to do, why not get someone to film you giving your speech? And then you can send it over to us at your year 3 email address or your year 4 email address and see if you can persuade us to want to do your thing as well. So we'd love to see you actually performing your speeches. That would be absolutely brilliant. So let's have a little look next. Oh, there's the email addresses. If you want to send them in to us, we'd love to see them, but no pressure. Let's have a little look at our connected curriculum for today. So we're back on to Monday, so we've got a brand new connected curriculum challenge for you today. We're still thinking about geography, but we've moved on a little bit because we're going to start thinking about the water cycle today. Okay, so there's an essential activity for everybody to do. So if you're going to do any CC this week, this is what we want you to do. So you're going to find out how the water cycle works. So in your work pack, there is a link to a website and some videos just to have a little look at and think about how the water cycle works. There's also some reading if you want to do that. You can choose to do that as well. Once you're happy and you understand and you know how the water cycle works, which is our essential activity this week, which everybody's got to do, if they're doing their CC, then you can choose a challenge to show us what you know. Okay, so challenge 1 this week is to conduct a science experiment to prove that evaporation happens even when there's no sunshine. So this is a puddle experiment. So have a look in your pack this week to see how you're going to conduct that. Challenge 2 is to make a model or a poster which explains how the water cycle moves and what happens to the water. Again, loads and loads of ideas in your work pack, which I'll show you in a second for that. If you want a bit of a creative writing challenge, this is a lovely one. So you can imagine you're a water droplet and you're going to write a story about your journey around the water cycle. And finally, challenge 4 this week is if you fancy yourself as a bit of a YouTuber, you can create your own video like we are doing each day to explain how the water cycle works to others, and we'll find a way to share those with your friends so that you can all learn from each other. So if you have a little look in the work pack, I can give you a little bit more detail on each of those. So over in the work pack, which is available on the school website, it gives you all of the information about the different CC challenges. Remember, you can choose what you want to do. You can choose to do them or not do them. It's whatever gets you interested, but something you might want to do. These are only a couple of minutes long, so this might be an easy one for you. The essential activity has got lots and lots of videos. These are all linked from your pack, so you can just go and click on them, and that'll tell you all about the water cycle. If you're excited about the water cycle and you want to share that knowledge with other people, have a go at the different activities we've got here. Again, there's links to help you to have a little look at them. There's pictures of models and different ideas on here as well. So do make sure that you've had a look at the work pack if you're going to complete the CC today. Okay, that's it from us for our Monday. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll be back tomorrow with more learning for you, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.